Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 142. Without any delay, start explanation. Tang Wulin was stupefied with amazement the moment he entered the plant system Soul Master cultivation room. Is this a room? No, he discovered that he had walked into a huge stretch of forest after he pushed the door open. It was a huge green forest with lush trees that were exceedingly dense. There were no roads in the forest. Instead, there were only soaring trees and countless vegetation that grew in an impressive manner. The thick life force felt like it was capable of advancing one's life energy just from breathing it in. As the sounds of birds and insects chirping echoed in his ears, it made everything feel so real. There was a tug in Tang Wulin's heart. He suddenly recalled where this place felt like. It felt like the Spirit Ascension platform on the Spirit Pagoda. The Spirit Ascension platform was a simulation of the Great Star Doe Forest. Could it be that this was somewhere similar as well? However, it was different from the Spirit Ascension platform, as the life force here was even denser and the vegetation was growing even more impressively over here. Even though Shrek Academy's special cultivation venue was impressive, the density of life force there was merely a third of what it was here. If Tang Wulin had been able to cultivate here all along, he probably would have had achieved double the results with half the effort. He did not dare to procrastinate any longer, so Tang Wulin immediately sat cross-legged on the ground to allow himself to enter a meditative state. He would never let go of such a fine opportunity. By closing his eyes and focusing his attention, he was able to sense the life force of the organisms in his surroundings. Soon, he tapped into this life force and entered a meditative state. Time would always seem to move faster when one was meditating. All of a sudden, he felt a touch in this unseen world of his, and Tang Wulin subconsciously opened his eyes. To his surprise, he was no longer in the Great Forest and had already arrived at the area he initially entered the spatial world of the Battle Soul Hall from. The dazzling door of light that he earlier came through had already opened itself up to him on the other end. Does this mean that my time is up? Tang Wulin immediately understood. At this moment, he could only feel refreshed and high-spirited. The soul power in his body had apparently grown stronger by a fold compared to when he was cultivating back at the Academy's special cultivation venue. To top it off, the source of his blood essence seemed to have become purer, while its power seemed to have become more vigorous. Is this the effects of being baptized from the life force earlier? What an impressive place! Tang Wulin secretly gasped in admiration in his heart. The Tang sect proved itself to be a sect that had already existed for 20 millennia. The secrets it held were neither less impressive nor inferior to that of the Spirit Pagoda. The sight before Tang Wulin's eyes transformed as soon as he stepped through the door of light. He arrived before the enormous bronze door he initially saw in the beginning after another bout of nausea. Waiting for him there was Guo Xiaoyu, decked in smiles as he saw Tang Wulin walk out. "How do you feel?" Guo Xiaoyu asked. Tang Wulin exclaimed, "It's simply too amazing. It feels extremely good to cultivate here. If I'm able to cultivate in that plant system Soul Master cultivation room all the time, I can almost be certain that I'll be able to achieve rank 40 soul power within a year." Guo Xiaoyu smiled gently. "Actually, it is quite a waste for you to choose to cultivate your soul power here." "Wasted? Why?" Tang Wulin asked in curiosity. "Follow me, and you'll find out." Guo Xiaoyu led Tang Wulin as they walked outside. This time, they continued walking until they left the Tang sect, but it was still dark outside. "Isn't it daytime yet? Perhaps I didn't cultivate for 12 hours then?" Tang Wulin asked. Guo Xiaoyu shook his head with a smile on his face. "You've cultivated for 12 hours in the Battle Soul Hall's room. However, only 1 hour has passed in the outside world." Tang Wulin was stunned. He was slightly confused by Guo Xiaoyu's words. The Battle Soul Hall's room encompasses more than just spatial laws, it also encompasses time. Time moves slower in there, so a person will experience some changes to their life signs. The ratio at which time moves in there is about 1 to 12. In other words, only 1 hour would have passed in the real world after you've cultivated in there for 12 hours. What if you could utilize these 12 hours to practice your combat abilities? Or to practice forging? Wouldn't you be able to do more in there? That's the reason why you shouldn't purely cultivate soul power the next time you're in there. Doing only that will indeed be a waste of time. Tang Wulin's eyes were already wide open as he listened to Guo Xiaoyu speak. So, what's happening here? A change in the speed of time? An hour being able to be used for 12 hours. This was simply unbelievable. Tang Wulin's heart was filled with shock at this moment. Just as Guo Xiaoshu had mentioned, he would be able to do more if he utilized the time in there to cultivate other skill-related abilities. His heart rate increased. Branchmaster, so if I were to stay there and cultivate continuously, a year of cultivation there would be equal to 12 years of cultivating outside. Guo Xiaoshu chuckled as he shook his head and replied, "It's not possible for us to look at it that way. Due to the distinct characteristics of that place, one would be changed by the different laws of space and time there should a person were to enter if one were to enter that place for too long. If one's life signs went through a significant transformation, there won't be a way to reverse the process any longer, and should your life signs were to clash with that of the world outside you'll age 12 times faster upon leaving. From our calculations, one can only enter that space for 12 hours at most before being able to enter again a week later. This way, your life signs will still remain synced with our world and you'll be unaffected by the different spaces." Tang Wulin exhaled a long breath of relief. So this is how it works. I'd say that if a person were to stay there long enough then it'll indeed be in defiance of nature. Guo Xiaoshu smiled. There are too many things to learn at your age now. It's unavoidable that you have too little time for everything. This advantage of the Battle Soul Hall will allow you to have an excess of 11 hours to cultivate in a week. Moreover, the condition for cultivation here is exceptional and we have the best cultivation area in the entire continent in every way possible. That you should definitely allocate some time to come here once a week. These benefits are simply too amazing. Tang Wulin gasped in admiration from the depth of his heart. I truly didn't expect that the Tang sect would have such powerful mastery of space and time. Guo Xiaoshu spoke, however these are all external forces. You'll still need to depend on yourself to become even more powerful. You're already on the right cultivation path, but the advancement in your soul power has no precedence in soul masters of the past on this continent. You have to be extremely cautious in your cultivation. You know where to look for me if you have unanswered questions. Yes, thank you, Branch Master. Tang Wulin answered respectfully. Go. Return next week. Remember to maintain the secrecy of your newly obtained membership as a Battle Soul Warrior. There is no rush for you to complete your mission now. We'll further discuss this matter once you're done with your second academic year and are on your break. All right. Tang Wulin's heart was already burning with a scorching heat when he thought of how he would be able to have an additional 11 hours in the best spot for cultivation. Yes. He truly felt like time was never enough for him. This was especially so after he made the decision to learn about operating a mecha. There were various skills involved in operating a mecha, and he would need a long period of time practice. Tang Wulin was initially in a dilemma as to the number of hours he should distribute to practice with his mecha. Aside from the mecha practical class which was already fixed, should he allocate another portion of his time to practice further? However, he would still need to practice on actual combat, forging, and the cultivation of his soul power. Every lesson required time, and as time passed, the management of it became the toughest issue he currently faced. However, he now had an excess of 11 hours. His toughest issue just became that much simpler to resolve. He could now settle his mecha practice, forging, and combat practice in the Battle Soul Hall now. He could still clearly recall the feeling he felt during his trial in the Hall of Heroes in the beginning. It was indeed a rather valiant but stressful feeling. Moreover, he was even able to engage in hand-to-hand combat with the most famous powerhouses in the Tang sect's history to feel the difference between himself and the others. It was simply too amazing. Tang Wulin's life passed in such a hectic but fulfilling learning and cultivation process. Everyone from first grade class 1 was making a great effort. This was the first time Wu Zhongkong taught in Shrek Academy. However, while this was not the first class Shinyi had ever taught there, she realized that the students in first grade class 1 were simply too hardworking compared to the class she had taught previously. They needed absolutely no supervision, and she could almost feel everyone's improvement every single day. Tang Wulin and Wu Sidwa's little groups were the ones that improved the fastest within their class. It was highly likely that the members of these two groups would enter the inner court in the future just based on the speed at which they were improving at now. Within the blink of an eye, half of the second academic year had already passed. Tang Wulin, come to my office after class, Wu Zhongkong announced before dismissing the class. Yes, Teacher Wu. Tang Wulin had grown taller by a few centimeters within half a year's time. He was already close to 180 meters tall, and the childish look on his face gradually diminished as he progressed in age. With his huge bright eyes and tall straight nose, he had already exceeded the cold-faced god Wu Zhongkong in his outlook. Only, he was not as attractive as Teacher Wu because he still lacked maturity. However, Tang Wulin was still extremely attractive among his peers. I wonder why Teacher Wu wants to see you, Xie Xie gathered over and spoke. Tang Wulin was done putting away his textbooks. He shrugged and spoke, I don't know either. I'll ask him. As he said this, he took the lead and walked out of the classroom. Before long, he arrived at Wu Zhongkong's office. This is for you. Wu Zhongkong passed a silver card to Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin received the card and asked, What is this, teacher? Wu Zhongkong answered, Your mecha has already passed the inspection. This is your identification card. Insert it into your mecha's card slot, and you'll be able to pass through all the checkpoint and radar scans. The mecha already has no issues with its legality, so you can fly it around most places on the continent. Awesome. Tang Wulin's mecha was ready much earlier, but it was utterly useless without a legal identity. It was not allowed for regular use outside, or he would be in big trouble if the city police found out he was doing so. On the other hand, it was an extremely difficult process to get a mecha identification card. It was only due to Wu Zhongkong, who used his academic position, along with the special contribution that Tang Wulin once made to Heaven Do City, that he managed to successfully apply for the card from the Heaven Do City Federation. Thank you, Teacher Wu, Tang Wulin smiled and said. Wu Zhongkong, there's no rush to thank me. I've something else to talk to you aside from this. I recall that you proposed a challenge on third grade class 1 during the beginning of the academic year, right? I've made an application to the Academy President CAI about this, and he's approved the challenge, so all of you can begin preparations for that. However, our class isn't going to challenge them all by ourselves. We'll be involving second grade class 1 as well. It'll be the first and second grade against the third grade. Tang Wulin's was shocked in his heart. So, what's the competition's format? Wu Zhongkong answered, 3 1-against-1 matches, 1 2-against-2 and 1 7-against-7 match. Yours and Wu Sidwa's little group will be the core of our class in the participation of this competition. The second grade will have their respective choices as well. The results of this competition influence your final examination and will be included in the results. 1 against 1. 2 against 2. 7 against 7. Was this not the most traditional form of competition then? Tang Wulin asked, Is second grade class 1 aware of this? Wu Zhongkong replied, They are supposed to be notified today. You can discuss the matter of the members participating in the match with Yuan later. Tang Wulin said, I'm afraid this might be a little difficult. How do we determine if we're going to send out more from our grade or the second grade? Wu Zhongkong responded, I don't care. You can all discuss this with second grade class 1 by yourselves. You can determine this matter based on your abilities. Understood, leave this to me then. Wu Zhongkong's intentions were already pretty clear. Naturally, it would be better if more students from his class were sent to compete in the challenge against the third grade. On the other hand, the number of players sent from each grade would naturally depend on their abilities. Tang Wulin returned to the dormitory and arrived at the entrance to Yuan and Yehue's room immediately. He knocked on her door, but there was no response. It seemed like Yuan and Yehue had yet to return. She's not back yet. I'll wait and see if she comes back later then. Tang Wulin returned to his room, reluctantly realized that he felt rather unfamiliar to his own dormitory. In reality, he rarely returned to his dormitory anymore since he would spend most of his time at the special cultivation venue. On the other hand, his afternoons were either spent on his forging, operating the mecha, or his combat abilities. He was not the only one. Everybody else was just as busy, and each of them had their own path to take for their cultivation. It was only during their lessons every morning that everyone could gather at the same place. At present, nobody was in the dormitory, so Tang Wulin laid on his bed and enjoyed this relaxing moment that felt a little extravagant. That being said, it felt good. Wu Zhongkong once told him not to tighten the bowstring too much. An overly tightened bowstring breaks easily. Surprisingly, he fell asleep without noticing. It was a dreamless slumber. He slept especially well, and when he woke up from his sleep, he could only feel a warm heat wash through his entire body. It felt indescribably comfortable. The feeling was truly too splendid. He stretched himself lazily, although he knew he was supposed to be practicing on his forging this afternoon. At the moment, he still had a sufficient stockpile of spirit alloys to supply to his companions so they could produce battle armor. After all, Yi Xinglan's ability to craft battle armor was limited, and to top it off, there was a chance of failure. She could successfully forge a piece of battle armor at a steady rate every 10 days. Currently, Yi Xinglan had more pieces of battle armor amongst her peers. She already had 3 sets: right forearm and right hand armor, right shoulder and upper arm armor, along with a headband. He made these for her earlier in order to improve her battle armor making ability. These few pieces of battle armor were the best supplement for her. Before the completion of these 3 pieces of battle armor, Yi Xinglan required 15 days to complete a piece of battle armor. Now that there was the addition of these 3 pieces of battle armor, her success rate of crafting a piece was much higher. Only then would she forge the right forearm and right hand battle armor for the others. Tang Wulin was unsure of Yuan and Yehui and Yu Jingyu's battle armor crafting level now. However, he assumed that Yuan's forging standards should not differ too far from Yi Xinglan's. Tang Wulin then turned around to sit up and stretched his body strenuously. The main purpose of this nap was to relax his strained spirit, and it worked wonders. He felt like a weight had been lifted off his entire person, making him feel lighter. It felt great. It seemed like he would need to get a good sleep in every once in a while in the future. Still, nobody else was in the dormitory. Xu Lixi and Xie Xie had yet to return. Tang Wulin then walked out of his room and looked to Yuan's room. He discovered in surprise that he had slept through the entire afternoon. At the moment, the sky had darkened and it was already dusk. There was light in Yuan and Yehui's room, and it was apparent that she had already returned. Tang Wulik walked over and knocked on her door. "Who's that?" Yuan and Yehui's voice echoed. "It's me, Tang Wulin." The door swung open, and a Yuan and Yehui who had resumed her feminine attire stuck her head out from within. "Busy man. It truly isn't an easy task to see you." The corners of Yuan and Yehui's lips twitched as if she was forcing a smile. Tang Wulin forced a laugh. "Everyone is busy. Our academy's stress level is very faulty. Come in." Yuan and Yehui stepped away from the door. Tang Wulin walked into her room, and she asked, "So, you're here for the match with the 3rd grade, right?" Tang Wulin nodded without the slightest hesitation. Yuan and Yehui said, "Have all of you decided on the players for the match?" Tang Wulin answered, "Aren't I here to discuss the matter with you? How about all of you? 3 matches of 1 against 1, a match of 2 against 2, and the addition of a group match. Which one do you guys prefer to participate in?" Yuan and Yehui replied, "Wulin, this match is actually meant for our grade and the 3rd grade. Generally, there hasn't been any matches that skipped a grade in the history of the academy. It'd be too unfair since everyone's age is so far apart. Moreover, it'll be quite meaningless to do so. Yet, you guys still lost to us though." Tang Wulin blinked his huge clear eyes. Yuan and Yehui scoffed in rage. "You know, I think frequently about beating up that beautiful face of yours. Tang Wulin burst out laughing. All right, we ought to stop sounding each other out. We're well aware of our abilities. Tell me what you want. We'll judge and weigh what we have in hand before we make a decision. Yuan and Yehue replied, all right. These matches should give priority to those of us from the second grade. We're taking out 2 out of 3 1-against-1 matches and a 2-against-2 match. We'll be sending out 4 representatives for the group match. You guys can have 3 slots. Tang Wulin raised his brows. Yuan, you aren't showing your sincerity here. In that case, I'll propose to the academy that we'll challenge the third grade by ourselves. The purpose is naturally to win the match. However, with all of you given such priority, do you think you can actually win? Yuan and Yehue sneered, so will we be able to win the match if you're all given the priority then? I'll be honest, I understand the situation in the third grade more than any one of you. They've 2 one-word battle armor masters in their ranks. Need I say more? Tang Wulin's pupils constricted abruptly upon hearing her words. There were already 2 one-word battle armor masters in the third grade? This was bad news. There was no doubt about the powers one-word battle armor masters possess. Tang Wulin and his group had witnessed it in the past. If there were 2 one-word battle armor masters, the competition would truly be arduous. Tang Wulin replied, in that case, you saying we'd win if you're given the priority? Yuan and Yehue responded indifferently, at least we understand our opponents better. We'll last longer even if we can't manage a win. Tang Wulin then challenged her. Our abilities will be the judge of this then. Else, we can have an audition trial. Whoever has the strongest abilities gets to go. Yuan and Yehue stopped for a moment. This was truly her soft spot. Quite a few students from the second grade were naturally and extraordinarily gifted, but still, there was a gap in their combined abilities when they were compared to the students in first grade class 1. She was initially assured that she would certainly triumph over Tang Wulin. However, after witnessing the battle between Tang Wulin and Wu Sidua, she was no longer as certain as she was in the past. The speed of Tang Wulin's development was truly too fast. Tang Wulin spoke up when he saw her being silent. Let me explain my way of doing this. If we were to consider the circumstance under which we'd have the highest possibility of winning, you, Yixinglan, and Wu Sidua should represent us in the 3 1-against-1 matches. Gu and I will take the 2-against-2 match. We have the best chemistry between ourselves as a team along with our martial soul fusion. I think this point is quite hard to disagree with, even for you. In the 7-against-7 match, we should send out 5 people from my side including myself, Gu, Yixinlan, Xie, and Xu Xiaoyan. From your side, you and Yu Jingyu should be the ones to participate. To send out these 5 persons from our side, including me, Gu, Yixinlan, Xie, and Xu Xiaoyan. On your side, send you and Yu Jingyu. Only this will ensure that the highest combat effectiveness from our side. In other words, people from your side should occupy 2 matches in the 1-against-1 competition while we fully occupy the 2-against-2 match. In the final 7-against-7, we'll send 5 people from our side along with 2 from your side. Nope. Yuan and Yehue rejected almost immediately without even the slightest hint of hesitation. What kind of joke is this? We're from the second grade. If that is the case, how am I supposed to justify this to my classmates? Tang Wulin explained, frankly speaking, Yuan, the abilities of your classmates can only go so far. His scorching hot gaze was staring down on Yuan and Yehue, causing her breathing to abruptly intensify. Yuan and Yehue's breathing sounded slightly rapid, and she was silent for a long while before she spoke again. All right, I'll admit that you're right. With your combined abilities, you and your classmates are truly more powerful. However, dare you say that your way of distribution contains no selfish motives at all? I can acknowledge it if other people possess superior abilities. However, why is Xie in the group match instead of Wu Sidua? Wu Sidua's as an individual definitely has abilities superior to Xie's. He's only a 3-ringed agility system soul master. Can his abilities exceed Wu Sidua in the group match? Tang Wulin was stunned for a moment. He did not expect her to direct the situation at Xie. He frowned slightly. Why can't he? Xie has twin martial soul as well. Are you intentionally ignoring this point? Moreover, Xie is my partner. We can definitely cooperate better when it comes to teamwork. Yuan and Yehue frowned. Let me consider this for a while. The door suddenly swung open at this moment and a person walked in. I'll renounce my participation. A voice that sounded slightly cold echoed from the door. Tang Wulin and Yuan and Yehue looked to the door simultaneously. Was that not Xie who was green with rage standing at the door? Xie turned around and left upon uttering those words. Xie. Tang Wulin hastily chased after him. As Yuan and Yehue gazed after their departing silhouettes, she was suddenly dumbfounded. Did he hear me? Did he hear all the words I said earlier? He must be hurt, right? Why did I have to say that? Immediately, she realized that she was feeling quite restless in her heart. Xie did not return to his room but instead, he walked straight out of the dormitory section. Tang Wulin chased after him from behind and grabbed his shoulder. Xie stopped walking. His entire body gave off an aura that felt a little cold. I'm fine, Wulin. I just need to be alone. Tang Wulin embraced his shoulder. Don't let the perception of others influence you. Everyone can see your hard work. You're my partner and I believe in your abilities. When others doubt us, we have to strike back even harder. We're going to do that with our abilities and you, my friend, are the strongest agility system soul master. Xie turned around and looked toward Tang Wulin. His expression slightly relaxed upon seeing the sincerity in Tang Wulin's eyes, but he suddenly threw a punch at the tree bark next to him. I don't understand why she's still treating me like this. I've been painstakingly cultivating every day, and yet I still find time to sweep the floor in front of her room, help her fetch the water, and wipe her windows early every morning. I've tried my hardest to work for everything she might need. I might not care how any other person sees me, but she's different. I'm not furious because she said my abilities aren't good enough. I'm only furious because I'm nothing in her heart. If that's the case, just forget it. His chest was heaving ever so slightly, and his gaze was just like that of a hurt wild beast. Tang Wulin replied, You're the only one who can make the decision in this matter, but I've something to tell you. Persistence is victory. If you're so easily defeated, then you might not necessarily succeed even when you've taken a fancy to someone else in the future. Although I'm not that experienced in relationships, I think I'll definitely not change my target so easily if I fancied a girl. I never wish to look for a girl who likes me. Instead, I'd much prefer if I would be able to find someone that doesn't like me, then I'd have a chance of making her like me. Xie darted him a look. Big brother, you're talking like this because you're in a good place. On one side, you have Guu and on the other side, you have a good sister. How will you have any problems in your relationships? Tang Wulin raised his hand and knocked Xie's head once. Your head is full of all these things. If you have so much time, why don't you cultivate more often? We're going to be 15 soon. Time waits for no man. I'll never ponder on these matters before entering the inner court. We should seize the opportunity to work hard while we're still young. Xie laughed after hearing him say that. Learn well and improve every day, am I right? Tang Wulin smiled. In many occasions, simpler words are more meaningful. Why do you ask? Have you come around? Xie shrugged. I'm a person whose courage mounts as the battle progresses. You're right. I should prove myself with my abilities when the others doubt them. I should and will never surrender so easily. That's the spirit. Tang Wulin nodded in all seriousness. Xie spoke in surprise, You think so too? Tang Wulin laughed. Yes. There are two simple words that can best describe you, thick-skinned. You. All right, I'm going to the special cultivation venue to cultivate. Are you joining me? Tang Wulin asked him. Xie shook his head. I'm not joining you. The speed of my soul power cultivation is not that slow. This is an exceptional advantage to those of us with twin martial souls. Oh, by the way, have I told you that I'm already rank 40 now? Tang Wulin's expression stiffened. You're at rank 42. Tang Wulin was only aware of Gu being the only one close to rank 40 amongst his partners. Xu Lixi should not be that far off as well. However, he did not expect Xie Xie to already be at rank 40 as well. At that moment, only he and Xu Xiaoyan were slightly below the margin to achieve rank 40. This was truly a little troubling for him since he had been utilizing the special cultivation venue every day and yet, he still had a ways to go from rank 40. Heh? I thought we're going to be fighting the third grade, right? We'll have a greater assurance of victory with 4 soul rings. He already had twin martial souls, so that was why he no longer needed to look for additional spirit souls once he achieved 4 rings. Gu was similar to him in this sense since she did not need to look for additional spirit souls. That was why they would be able to possess their 4th soul skills once they broke through to rank 40. Tang Wulin gave him a big thumbs up. Work hard. I'll continue to work with a greater amount of effort then. In the end, 2nd grade class 1 did not approve of Tang Wulin's suggestion. Yuan and Yehui gathered the opinions from their class and their teacher before she discussed it with Tang Wulin the next day. Let's have an audition trial then. This way, everyone will have a fair go at it. We'll let our abilities speak for themselves. Yuan and Yehui announced to Tang Wulin. All right. Tang Wulin agreed without the slightest hesitation. He had full confidence in his companions. Yuan and Yehui replied, we should discuss how we should carry the trial out before we begin. Tang Wulin asked the candidates for the 3 1-against-1 matches. Do any of you have objections? Yuan and Yehui shook her head. Our opinion regarding individual power is almost similar to your proposal. However, do you think Yi Xinglan is stronger than you? Tang Wulin nodded without the slightest hesitation. The success rate of me going against her in a 1-against-1 match is about 30%. A surprised look flashed past Yuan and Yehui's eyes. She was truly unaware that Tang Wulin's evaluation of Yi Xinglan's abilities in his heart was so high. However, Yi Xinglan did manage to hold her own against a few powerhouses from the 2nd grade. To top it off, she did that just by depending on her own power during that earlier match between the 1st and 2nd grade. Her abilities were truly extraordinary. How about the 2-against-2 match? Do all of you have any opinion on that? Yuan and Yehui answered, we're going to strive to win over that match. I'll join you Zhengyu versus you and Gu. Tang Wulin agreed. All right. That's considered a match. How about the group match? What did the 7 people representing the group match think? Yuan and Yehui answered, it's certainly not a problem with us if Gu and Yi Xinglan are on your side. We only object to these 2 people, Xu Xiaoyan and Xie Xie. I'll be choosing 2 students from my class and have a 2-against-2 match with them as a trial of strength. Whoever wins will get to represent us and participate in this competition. How about that? Of course, the 2 people that are chosen from my class won't be me and you Zhengyu. All right. That's settled then. Tang Wulin agreed without the slightest hesitation. Yuan and Yehui could not help frowning upon seeing that he agreed so directly. You're so certain about this? Of course. Frankly speaking, anybody else aside from you and Zhengyu from your class cannot necessarily triumph over Wu Sidua's little group. Could you be less conceited? Yuan and Yehui replied in an unpleasant tone. Tang Wulin retorted, would you like to try this instead? We won't send the 6 from my group to fight. Instead, everyone will form a 5-man group. You and you Zhengyu will stay out of the fight as well. Let's see who wins. I have no time for this nonsense. Yuan and Yehui walked away from rage. This is the despair of having abilities that are below expectation. It's true, the average abilities of this batch's class 1 is truly too strong. Tang Wulin squinted his eyes as he pondered. It's good that we organized such a trial. There's more than just the 2nd grade who's doubting Xie Xie and Xu Xiaoyan's abilities. Isn't it the same in our class? Wu Sidua, Luo Guixing, Xu Yuqing were all people with impressive abilities. Yet, they were not even nominated to enter the group match. How could their hearts be convinced? Only a challenge to prove one's abilities through combat would clear the air along with the doubt everyone had. The trial date was resolved easily. It would be held 2 days later in Shrek Academy's sparring arena. There were a total of 2 matches, and both were 2-against-2 matches. Xie and Xu Xiaoyan would go against second-grade Class 1's Duan Hunxiao and Yi Xingmo in the first match. Then, Tang Wulin and Gu Yu would go against Yuan and Yehui and Yu Jingyu in the second match. Even though there were only 2 matches, it was filled with excitement. Yi Xingmo was pinned down in agony by Yi Xinglan in the previous duel between the first and second grades. However, this did not mean that he was weak. It was only because his martial soul was suppressed by Yi Xinglan in an overly cruel manner. Second grade Class 1 even had Duan Hunxiao, a 4-ring Master Control Soul Master. He was the first student to achieve 4 rings when even Yuan only had 3 rings at that time. On the first grade's corner, Xie and Xu Xiaoyan had always been regarded as the runt of the litter in Tang Wulin's group. They were not particularly strong and at most, only Xie seemed to have some potential and looked to be a little more capable in combat. This competition would determine the 2 candidates who would be filling up the slots in the group match against the third grade. As for the second match, it would undoubtedly be a clash of the titans. It was a match between the 2 universally acknowledged strongest duos from both grades. Both duos had their own strengths. Although Tang Wulin and Ji Yu's cultivation base were slightly weaker, they possessed the incomparable ability of a martial soul fusion skill. It was difficult to tell if Yuan and Yehui and Yu Jingyu were capable of countering this. When compared, more people would be supporting Tang Wulin and Ji Yu's group. This was just a mere trial, and yet the Outer Courts Academy president, Elder Cai, was personally acting as the judge. The fact that she would be executing the justice for them was out of everyone's expectations. 2 days later. It was 2 in the afternoon, and all the first and second grade students from the outer court were already present at the sparring arena. They were waiting for the internal audition trial to begin. Are you confident? Tang Wulin looked at Xie and Xu Xiaoyan standing in front of him. Yes. Xie spoke without the slightest hesitation. Xu Xiaoyan smiled gently. I'll be fine as long as he doesn't stand in the way. Xie was exasperated. I'm not the one standing in your way. This time, you'll bear witness to how strong I am. Luo Guixing whispered into Wu Sidua's ear on the stage. Why aren't we involved in the audition trial this time? Have you asked Tang Wulin? The corners of Wu Sidua's lips twitched, but still, he seemed like he was smiling. You still don't know the way he is? He looks calm and gentle, but in reality, he's a very cunning person. He told me that he'd send me out to say it's unfair if Xie and Xu Xiaoyan were defeated in the audition trial. Then, we'll fight them once again. Then, a puzzled expression suffused Luo Guixing's face. Is that even possible? Wouldn't that be cheating? Wu Sidua replied, Tang Wulin told me in an extremely justified and confident manner at the time. He told me that we're still young and the second-grade students should yield to us. Moreover, we aren't really cheating anyway. Luo Guixing patted his forehead. So what if Xie and Xu Xiaoyan win the match? Wu Sidua repeated, so what if Xie and Xu Xiaoyan wins? Wu Sidua explained, if they win, he'll send us out to balance out the 2-against-2 match. There's no duo from our side capable of defeating them aside from me, you, and Xu Yuqing. Luo Guixing frowned hard. What does he mean? Could it be that he thought Xu Xiaoyan and Xie were stronger than Xu Yuqing and I? Wu Sidua said, I don't think so either. However, Tang Wulin isn't a person who does things aimlessly. Luo Guixing frowned again. Could it be that they've made a huge leap in their abilities? Don't you find them to be especially strong in the challenge during the beginning of the academic year? Wu Sidua answered, they didn't even go all out during that match, how would I be able to know? Take a look for yourself. You'll be able to see it in today's competition. Luo Guixing nodded gently. There were no nitty-gritty procedures whatsoever during the internal audition trial. Elder CAI ascended the competition stage and announced, 2 against 2. Students from both parties, please enter the arena. Duan Hunxiao and Yi Xingmo ascended the stage from the second grade's corner, appearing even steadier compared to their previous encounter. Yi Xingmo's gaze was incisive, and his eyes were shimmering with an indistinct but sharp radiance. Xie Xie and Xu Xiaoyan walked up to the competition stage together from the other corner. Yuan and Yehui watched them as they walked up the stage side by side. For some unknown reason, she felt a tinge of unease in her heart. She had been feeling heartache ever since Xie Xie stormed off in rage the other day. However, it felt impossible for her to take the initiative to admit to Xie Xie that it was a mistake she made out of pride. She initially thought that he would no longer appear before her after the day he hurt him. Who would have known that she would still see a clean doorstep when she woke up the fresh morning along with a basin full of fresh water in front of her door? Absent-minded, she stood there for almost half a minute before she managed to react. This person is truly persistent. The initial rage she had in her heart toward Xie Xie had vanished from that day onward. At the very least, she would not burst into a frenzy of rage the moment she saw him. Even though this person is a little unpredictable, but it's already very rare for me to see him these days. I guess he's been working hard all along. Would he catch up with me? I'm destined to enter the inner court. Even Yuan and Yehui was feeling slightly frightened when this thought appeared in her mind. Since when did I start thinking on his behalf? Xie Xie was very good looking as well. However, he looked ordinary because he spent most of his time shadowed by Tang Wulin charm. When he ascended the stage with Xu Xiaoyan at this moment, they gave off a feeling like they were a perfect couple. Both parties stepped onto the competition stage, standing on opposite sides. Elder CAI spoke indifferently, do everything that you can. Begin. There were no competition rules. That was the reason why they were allowed to use everything in their arsenal to display their abilities. Xie Xie immediately moved with Elder CAI's call to begin the competition. He was just like a refreshing breeze. He flew up lightly as the light dragon dagger appeared in his right hand. His speed was unusually fast. Even as the sound of Elder CAI's voice was still echoing, he had already dashed past half the stage. Such swiftness! Duan Hunxiao and Yi Xingmo were both startled. So were the first and second grade students who were watching the competition. Many of the agility system battle soul masters were subconsciously measuring their speed. How was their speed compared to Xie Xie? Soon, they found out that they were definitely not as fast as him. Duan Hunxiao and Yi Xingmo were chosen to represent second grade in the competition for their extraordinary abilities. As soon as Yi Xingmo took a step forward, he had already put himself in front of Duan Hunxiao, and his Star Saint sword leaped into his right hand at the flash of a radiance. A stretch of starlight stretched out into the path where Xie Xie was dashing toward. However, it was also at this exact moment that Xie Xie made a change in movement that no one had ever expected. His exceedingly high-speed dash suddenly halted to a stop in a split second. The changes he made were truly too absurd, from moving at breakneck speed to a halting silence. The light dragon dagger was raised, and everyone instantly felt like his entire being had suddenly grown larger in a split second. In reality, his body did not grow larger. Instead, it was the explosive force coming off of his body. Eventually, when the explosive force from Xie Xie dissipated, everyone could finally see 2 yellow and 2 purple soul rings around his body at the same time. Wu Xidua, Luo Guixing, and Xu Yuqing's froze upon witnessing these 4 soul rings as they sat in the audience. The usual upper hand they had in their soul skills were instantly destroyed. Fortunately for them, Xu Xiaoyan released her star staff beside him along with an expected 3 soul rings. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.